My name is Olivia Randall, and that's David.
David. I'm her fiance. She's my fiance.
We're engaged. So endometriosis is when the juices in your uterus that you bleed out get out and they cover other parts of your body. So they can go like close or like far away. And they'll send out the pain waves that you get like when you're on your period, but they're in the wrong spot. So those can cause a lot of unnecessary pain in other parts of your body. It can cause scar tissue and adhesions and just kind of make life not as fun. I was having like 3-month cycles, so I would only have my period every 3 months. And it would flare up around my cycle, but I didn't know that because it would be like 2 weeks before, during, 2 weeks after, and then it would kind of settle down, but that's a really long time. So I was just noticing like, oh, I'm like in pain a large chunk of the time. Most of my scar tissue and stuff that was found are in my lower left area. So for me, a lot of the times, there's just a lot of discomfort in this centralized area. There's a lot of different types of pain that I feel. Sometimes there's like, I'll get like a shooting down my leg. In general, it can be very sharp and stabby. On a day-to-day basis is more like achy, but about every 3 months, I would get, it was pretty regular, like I could track it pretty well, but 2-3 months instead of 1. When it's pretty bad, I can't do very much. So I would struggle a lot of times, like before I got surgery, with like just not even being able to work. And it's really difficult for me to work or to hang out with people or to really do anything in my day-to-day life when it's like at its peak, like 7 to 10 on the pain scale. I would say that with the amount, like the oftenness, frequency that I have pain, I've learned to work through most of the things that I feel, because right now, like when it's pretty bad, I get pain about every day where I can pinpoint, okay, like I do feel some sort of discomfort or some sort of thing right now. But unless it's like up, 8, 9, 10 on the pain scale, usually I can work through it. It does severely decrease my my will to do things. Like, what's affected the most is probably my psychological aspect of things, like the disappointment of constantly having to deal with pain, or the sometimes there's a crushing knot, like feeling of no hope, of sort of like, oh, am I gonna have to deal with this all the time, because this is really lame and I don't think I can.
I'm offering comfort and stuff and trying to make her life easier because her body is making life difficult. And so that it's not a huge thing for me because I'm not feeling like the pain or anything. Like it hurts me to see her in pain, and I'm like, I can't do anything about it, and that's kind of like lame. When I'm bored, I can just go take care of my woman and then
That's one way to think about it.
Yeah. Not yet.
Not yet, but it definitely will. Part of the hesitation right now is just like the expense of like just eating better in general, and just kind of like the habit, and like the knowledge and stuff. I do have a lot of people on my mom's or my dad's side of the family that eat very well, and my mom does too, so I have help. I've kind of had been putting it off just because of it's expensive and it's a lot of work, and not something that I want to worry about until, well, I'm starting, it's on my radar, but like until like we're more settled, because our wedding is pretty soon, so everything is crazy. Certain hormones are very harmful to me, including estrogen, which is a really big one. I mean, in the female body, but just everywhere, in what they put in foods. Inflammatory foods are very not helpful for endometriosis because it's an inflammatory disease, and a lot of the pain that you feel are them sending like these inflamed signals of like, oh, I'm doing my job just in the wrong spot. So I have found that eating more inflaming food does seem to affect my pain, as like if I'm feeling pain, like, I don't think it brings about pain necessarily that I wasn't feeling before, but if I'm in pain, it's going to make that pain a lot more intense. I feel a lot more sharp pain feelings with foods that I shouldn't be eating, you know. I've always kind of been affected by, like, gluten. I'm not sure if it's, like, because I have an intolerance or, like, because of whatever. But it kind of seems to help me more in general. Like, I feel better. I have a lot more energy because my body's not trying to, like, break down these foods that I am having trouble with, and, like, dairy. I think sugar is a really big, like, pain factor because it's so, like, such an inflammatory food. It's just kind of, like, stirring everything up in there.
Yeah, it's to the point where whenever she wants, like a very good example is like fried chicken. If we're driving by Cane's and she wants some chicken, I have to like encourage her to not eat there because I know that it'll affect her and it won't be very nice for either of us to deal with. You know, it's definitely enough that I notice it and try and help her not, you know, do that.
I mean, there are a lot more studies on endometriosis, like, right now than there have ever been, and even in the past, like, 5 years. Like, it's just being looked into a lot more, which I appreciate because it really is something that's, like, harder to, because every woman is different and every case looks different. It's really, really helpful because when I first got diagnosed, they were like, well, this is a kind of tricky one because, like, what works for some people doesn't work for other people, and it was just like this way more hopeless, like, oh, like, cool, I'm going to be experimenting with things forever and it's going to suck. But just, I mean, like, in the past year, my provider, who is really good at looking into, like, holistic approaches or, like, diet things, or, like, she's very up to date on the studies that are happening, like, has really reached out and been like, here are studies, like, it's constantly giving me, like, printed packets and stuff like that. And my other provider, who is a specialist in endometriosis, has started giving me things like, oh, this is starting to help a lot of women, or, like, a lot of people have benefited from this, which is a lot more helpful sounding, like, oh, try this because it's really benefited a lot of people with this disease, than, like, I have no idea, you're just gonna have to, like. So I'm really excited that there's a lot more, even very recently.